Hello, Friday, and we're going to start with Umer Ak, who has written a blog for Harvard Business Review. That's it. Was Marx right? Question mark. And starts, in case you've been on Mars or even just on vacation, here's a surprising idea that's been making the rounds lately. There might have been something to Marx's critique of capitalism after all. And he goes on 5 or 6 paragraphs to explain how he's not a commie bastard, and it's really quite nicely written, and I recommend you go and have a read of this article, even if it's just for his opening paragraphs. But he goes into some Marx's concepts to give them a bit of a look at with a modern eye. Immiseration. Marx claimed that capitalism would immiserate workers. He meant that labour would be exploited, not just in a purely ethical sense, but in a narrower economic one, that real wages would fall and working conditions would deteriorate. I'll leave that there and go on to another idea, which is crisis. As workers were paid less and less, capitalism would be prone to chronic, perpetual crises of overproduction, for they wouldn't have the means to purchase or invest in enough goods to keep the economy humming. As Marx put it, there was likely to be poverty in the midst of plenty. Ideas. So I'm going to intersperse some other articles and come back to more Marx. This is an economist from the Economist chart, and it's of 2-year government bond yields. I would have had them the other way round, but I'll start on the right. And the lowest bond yields, Switzerland for the 2-year, it's actually probably gone down lately as well, because this is only a week old, this chart, but things change so much. But if you want bond yields for 2 years, let's call them the safe bet. Switzerland, Japan, Singapore, United States, all under 0.2%. That's all you'll get for 2 years. If you really push the boat out in riskiness, you can go to Hong Kong, Germany, Saudi Arabia and Britain, and you'll get between 0.2 and 0.5% interest over 2 years. But if you really want big interest over 0.5%, you've got to go to Netherlands or Finland. But there are other countries out there, depending how risky you feel or whether you're using somebody else's money or not. You can go and get 9%, just under 9 in India, just over 9 in Ireland, and then increasingly Nigeria, Brazil, Kenya, Vietnam, Pakistan, Venezuela, Portugal and Greece, which is obviously off the charts because that's really a default rate. But if you're feeling daring, you can get good interest rates. Or if you're more that way inclined, there's good moves in the carry trade, written all over that. Back to Marx. Stagnation. Here's Marx's most controversial and most curious prediction, that as economies stagnated, real rates of profit would fall. Now he then goes on to explain all about how it seems at the moment that, let's say, US corporations have magnificent profits at the moment. But we get back in with Marx might be said to have been onto something. Though corporations book nominal profits, I'd suggest a significant component of that profit is artificial, earned by transferring value rather than creating it. Transferring value rather than creating it. Replace declining real profit with shrinking real value, and it's analogous to what Tyler Cowen and I have called a great stagnation. And if you follow Tyler Cowen and know that this chap is linked with him, you certainly know that he's certainly no commie bastard. Right. Over to the New York Times. conscience of a liberal, Paul Krugman, talking about gold. And it's a wonkish blog. In other words, what he calls wonkish, generally we call wonkish, is anything that might have algebra in it and that we basically can't understand. But I think, hurrah, Paulie's got it right. But suppose this is the right story. You'll have to read the wonkishness to see the story, or at least a good part of the story of gold prices. If so, just about everything you read about what gold prices mean is wrong. For this is essentially a real story about gold in which the price has risen because expected returns on other investments have fallen. It's not, repeat, not a story about inflation expectations. Not only are surging gold prices not a sign of severe inflation just around the corner, they're actually the result of a persistently depressed economy stuck in a liquidity trap. An economy that basically faces the threat of a Japanese-style deflation, not Weimar-style inflation. So people who bought gold because they believed that inflation was around the corner were right, but just for the wrong reasons. You tell them, Paulie. Workers play cards at Indian factories as asset sales founder. So we're in India. Each day, about 2,800 workers punch their time cards in and out of Hindustan Cables Limited, factories in India. They get paid, receive the occasional raise, and eat in subsidized canteens, even though they produce nothing. The state-owned company, based in Kolkata, hasn't made any cable since 2004 and has lost $550 million after cellular technology has made its telephone wiring obsolete. Labour laws, which the World Bank say are amongst the most restrictive anywhere, and tortuous bankruptcy procedures, a legacy of India's Soviet-style era planned economy, mean the government can't fire idle employees or sell assets such as machinery or land. Bless. Meanwhile, back with Marx. Alienation. As workers were divorced from the output of their labour, Marx claimed, their sense of self-determination dwindled, alienating them from a sense of meaning, purpose, and fulfilment. I think this is an important one. As workers were divorced from the output of their labour. It's a big throwback, but it's a throwback to a time where you might raise crops or an animal or carve something, take it to market and be recompensed for that product, directly recompensed by other people who can recognise the quality of craftsmanship that you've put into it. And the more craftsmanship you put into raising good vegetables, cows or carved ornaments, the more you're directly likely to get for it. But in this world, it's just a backstabbing thing where you might get a raise or promotion or something like that. And we are divorced completely from the products that we produce. Meanwhile, back in Ireland, the Irish Independent found that Dunn's Stores is selling bra and knicker sets for 3 to 4-year-olds and for 5 to 6-year-olds. Bra and knickers. Knickers are panties for English people. Although the laced trimmed underwear is labelled as crop top set, it's in the underwear department amongst other starter bra sets for girls. Dunn's also has padded bras for girls with 28 to 30 inch chest, although it doesn't make clear what age group these are designed for. Penny's, meanwhile, has padded bras emblazoned with the logo Superstar. targeted at girls who are 140 centimetres tall or aged around 9. Those are padded bras. The chain also has non-padded bras for 5 or 6-year-olds, again labelled crop tops, but sold with other underwear sets aimed at girls. At least they're aimed at girls, eh? Moving on to Marx again. Yes. False consciousness. According to Marx, one of the most pernicious aspects of industrial age capitalism was that the proles, the workers, wouldn't even know they were being exploited, and might even celebrate the very factors behind their exploitation in a kind of ideological Stockholm syndrome that concealed and misrepresented the relations of power between classes. Over in America, the Postal Service's fiscal problems summed up in 2 sentences by Kid Dynamite. And if you follow that link, New York Times article, and read about US Postal, they are in deep trouble. Anyway, number 1, the law also prevents the post office from raising postage fees faster than inflation. Fair enough. 2, the agency's labour contracts have long guaranteed no layoffs to the vast majority of its workers, and management agreed to a new layoff clause in a major union contract last May. KD says, can't raise prices, can't cut labour costs. Good luck, and we will be seeing that on our television screens soon. Back to Marx, commodity fetishism. We finish with this. A fetishized object is one which is more than a symbol. It is believed to have actually the power the symbol represents, like an idol or totem with magical properties. Marx claimed that under industrial age capitalism's rules, commodities became reversed talismans, worshipped through transactional exchanges, imbued with mystical powers that gave them inherent value, and obscuring the value of and in the very people who've laboured over them in the first place. It's one of Marx's most subtle and nuanced concepts. Does it hold water? Again, I'll merely point to society's infurious pursuit of more, bigger, faster, cheaper, nastier now, whether it's the retail templates of America's mega malls or London rioters stealing not bread but video games. Do we go for growth, or do we try and make life a little more reasonable? Very tricky choice, but it is a T-junction. Let's make the choice over the weekend. See you next week. Bye.